Imagine you've been fasting for months. At first, everything worked perfectly. Fat melted off. Energy soared. You felt sharper than ever. But then something changed. The results stopped. Your sleep got worse. You started feeling cold all the time. And now the only way you can lose weight is if you fast even longer. Sound familiar? Here's what's actually happening inside your body. And trust me, it's not what you think. Fasting doesn't just affect your metabolism, it radically affects your hormonal system. And if you think of hormones like a missile trajectory, just a few millimeters off at launch can change where that missile lands by miles. So when fasting starts messing with your hormones even slightly, the effects ripple through your entire body. But here's the good news. Once you understand what's going wrong, fixing it is surprisingly simple. It involves changing when you fast, how you break your fast, and matching your fasting to your actual life situation. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear blueprint that works for your specific situation, whether you eat a normal mixed diet, follow keto, or need to watch your blood sugar. Before we dive in, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions, please work with your healthcare provider. Now let's talk about what fasting actually does to your hormones. When you stop eating, your brain notices immediately. Specifically, a part called the hypothalamus detects the change in energy coming in. And its job is to translate that information into hormonal signals that affect your entire body. Think of it as mission control, sending out instructions to different systems. Here are the main hormones that respond to fasting. Insulin drops because you're not eating, so there's no glucose to manage. IGF, which is a repair hormone, also decreases. Cortisol increases, and this one is important, so we'll spend time on it. Your thyroid hormones. T3 and T4 change in specific ways. Glucagon rises to help regulate energy, and growth hormone surges, which actually helps protect your muscles. Now here's where most people get confused. They hear that cortisol rises during fasting and they panic. Cortisol is the stress hormone, right? So fasting must be stressing out the body, but that's not quite what's happening. Cortisol rises during fasting for a very specific reason. Your brain needs glucose to function. When you're not eating, your body has to get that glucose from somewhere. So cortisol signals your liver to release stored glucose and even create new glucose from other sources. This is called gluconeogenesis. In other words, cortisol rising during fasting isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's your body protecting your brain. It's a survival mechanism that kept your ancestors alive during times when food wasn't available. The same thing happens with your thyroid. During fasting, your body reduces the conversion of T for the storage form of thyroid hormone into T3, the active form. Research shows this conversion can drop by as much as 54%. Some studies found T3 levels decrease by up to 55% within 24 hours of fasting. Why does this happen? Because T3 controls how fast you burn energy. When food is scarce, your body deliberately slows down your metabolism to conserve fuel. It's not a malfunction. It's intelligent adaptation. And here's something fascinating. Growth hormone actually surges during fasting. A study published in the journal Diabetes found that growth hormone is essential for protecting muscle during fasting. When researchers blocked growth hormone in fasting subjects, muscle protein breakdown increased by 50%. So your body isn't just sitting there letting your muscles waste away. It's actively protecting them. So if all these hormonal changes are normal and protective, why do so many people run into problems with fasting? The answer is simple. These adaptations are designed for short-term survival, not long-term lifestyle. When you fast occasionally, your hormones shift. You get benefits, and then everything returns to normal when you eat. But when you fast too frequently, too long, or under the wrong conditions, these protective mechanisms start causing problems. Let me show you the warning signs that your fasting might be pushing your hormones too far. First, skin changes. If you're noticing more acne rashes, redness, or unusual puffiness, that's often a sign that cortisol has been elevated for too long. High cortisol can also disrupt your sex hormones, which shows up on your skin. Second, hair and nail changes. If your hair is thinning, falling out more than usual, or your nails have become brittle, that's typically a sign that your thyroid hormones, specifically T3, have dropped too much. When T3 is low, your body deprioritizes things like hair and nails to save energy for more essential functions. Third, sleep disruption. This is a big one. If you're waking up at 4 in the morning, wide awake, unable to fall back asleep, and then crashing by 9 or 10 in the morning, that's a classic sign of cortisol rhythm disruption. Cortisol is supposed to peak in the early morning and gradually decrease throughout the day. When it's dysregulated, it can spike at the wrong times, waking you up when you should be sleeping. Fourth, cold hands and feet. If your extremities are constantly cold and don't warm up easily, your metabolism has likely slowed down significantly. This is your thyroid putting the brakes on energy expenditure. Fifth, intense salt cravings. If you suddenly can't stop craving salty foods, your body is telling you it needs minerals. It's a signal that you're depleted and need to eat. Now, before you blame fasting for all of this, I need to share something important. Cortisol doesn't just come from one source. There are actually two main contributors. The first is metabolic cortisol. This is the cortisol that rises from fasting itself, from depleted glycogen, from intense exercise at the wrong time, or from not eating enough calories when you do eat. The second is lifestyle cortisol. This comes from poor sleep work, stress, anxiety, relationship problems, or working night shifts. This type of cortisol has nothing to do with fasting. Here's the key insight. You don't need to guess which one is affecting you. You just need to look at three things. How is your sleep? What's your current stress level? And what type of exercise are you doing? If all three are problematic, fasting isn't causing your issues. It's just the final straw on an already overwhelmed system. And in that case, fasting shorter or less frequently might help, but it won't solve the underlying problem. Okay, let's pause here and recap what we've covered so far. 1. Fasting dramatically affects your hormones. Insulin drops, cortisol rises, thyroid slows down. This is normal and protective in the short term. 2. Cortisol rises specifically to keep your brain supplied with glucose. It's not punishment, it's protection. 3. When these changes happen too often or for too long, you get warning signs. Skin problems, hair loss, sleep disruption, cold hands and feet, and salt cravings. 4. Cortisol comes from two sources: metabolic stress from fasting and exercise, and lifestyle stress from poor sleep, work pressure, and anxiety. Now let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make: combining intense exercise with extended fasting. A study published in Physiology Reports compared regular intermittent fasting to intermittent fasting combined with high-intensity interval training. The results were striking. The group that combined fasting with high-intensity training showed decreased muscle fiber size, increased cell death, and elevated levels of myostatin, which is a protein that actually blocks muscle growth. In other words, the exact opposite of what you want from exercise. Why does this happen? Because both fasting and high-intensity exercise raise cortisol. When you combine them, you get a compound effect. Cortisol stays elevated much longer, and instead of building muscle, you start breaking it down. Research shows that cortisol remains elevated for about 60 minutes after high-intensity exercise, staying roughly 50% higher than baseline. It doesn't return to normal until about 2 hours after the workout. So here's a simple rule. If your fast has been longer than 14 hours, avoid high-intensity interval training. You can still do it if your fast is under 14 hours. For example, if you ate dinner at 6 p.m. and work out at 6 or 7 a.m., you're still within the safe window. But if you ate at 5 p.m. and don't work out until 8 a.m., you've crossed the 14-hour threshold and high-intensity training becomes problematic. What should you do instead during longer fasts resistance training? Lifting weights with moderate intensity around 8 to 10 reps with adequate rest between sets. This type of training doesn't spike cortisol the same way, and it actually helps you take advantage of the elevated growth hormone that fasting provides. Ideally, you would break your fast right after your resistance training. The carbohydrates you eat will go primarily into refilling muscle glycogen rather than being stored as fat. That's actually a great metabolic situation. Now let's talk about how to fix these issues. I'm going to give you a blueprint with specific rules, and then I'll show you 3 different approaches to breaking your fast depending on your diet style. Rule number 1. Move your calories earlier in the day. Research published in the journal Nutrients analyzed 14 different studies on fasting and cortisol. They found that people who ate their calories earlier in their eating window had more normal cortisol rhythms. Those who pushed most of their food to dinner had more disrupted patterns. This is hard for many people because we tend to break our fast with something small and then eat a big dinner later. But if you can flip this eating your largest meal earlier in your eating window, your hormones will thank you. Rule number 2. If you're fasting every single day, your baseline should be 12 hours, not 16. I know 16 hours has become the standard everyone talks about. But if you're doing it daily, especially with any lifestyle stress, 16 hours every day is too much for most people. 12 hours gives you benefits without chronic hormonal disruption. Rule number 3. Push to longer fasts, only 1 or 2 days per week. Instead of trying to fast 20 hours every day, fast 12 hours on most days, and then once or twice a week extend to 20 or 24 hours. This gives your body the deeper benefits of extended fasting without the chronic stress. Rule number 4. Match your fasting length to your stress level. This is crucial. When you're going through a high-stress period at work, dealing with family issues, or sleeping poorly, shorten your fasts. When life is calm and you're sleeping well, you can push longer. Your ancestors didn't have a choice about this, but you do. Use that advantage. Now here's something important. There is no single formula for breaking a fast that works for everyone. I'm going to give you 3 different approaches based on how you eat. The first approach is for people eating a normal mixed diet. When you break your fast, start with 30 to 40 grams of lean protein. Chicken breast, white fish, or egg whites work well. Add 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrates from sources like potato rice or fruit. Keep fat very low in this first meal. Why this combination? Protein and carbohydrates together trigger an insulin response. And remember, insulin and cortisol are like 2 ends of a seesaw. When insulin goes up, cortisol comes down. This combination helps shut off the stress response quickly. Wait about 60 to 90 minutes, then eat normally, including fats. The second approach is for people following keto or carnivore, who want to stay in ketosis. You don't need carbohydrates to break your fast. Instead, focus on protein with healthy fats. Whole eggs, avocado, fatty fish, or meat with natural fat content all work well. The key for you is making sure you're eating enough total calories and getting enough electrolytes, especially sodium, potassium, and magnesium. If you're well adapted to keto and not experiencing the red flags I mentioned earlier, you can continue this way indefinitely. However, if you are experiencing red flags like sleep disruption, hair loss, or feeling constantly cold, consider adding a strategic carbohydrate meal once or twice per week. This doesn't kick you out of ketosis permanently. It just gives your body a periodic signal that food is abundant. The third approach is for people with diabetes or those monitoring blood sugar closely. Your priority is blood sugar stability. Break your fast with protein and fat first, along with non-starchy vegetables. This creates a foundation that slows glucose absorption. If you include carbohydrates, keep the portion small, choose low glycemic options, and eat them after you've already had protein and fat. This sequence significantly reduces blood sugar spikes. Most importantly, monitor your blood glucose and work with your healthcare provider. Fasting can be beneficial for blood sugar management, but it needs to be done carefully and individually. You see, when you hear different experts giving contradictory advice about breaking a fast, they're usually not wrong. They're just talking to different audiences with different goals and different metabolic situations. Now, let me give you some simple weekly templates you can start using immediately. Template A is for people with high stress or those just starting out. 5 or 6 days per week fast for 12 hours. That could be 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. On one day per week, if you're feeling good, extend to 16 hours. Focus on gentle exercise like walking yoga or light resistance training. Avoid intense cardio until your stress is lower. Template B is for people who exercise regularly at the gym. On training days, keep your fast to 12 to 14 hours maximum and break your fast after your workout. On rest days, you can extend to 16 or 18 hours if you feel good. Save any high-intensity work for days when your fast is shorter, or make sure to have carbohydrates afterward. Template C is for people following a ketogenic diet. Fast 12 to 16 hours daily. Break your fast with protein and fat, no carbohydrates needed. Consider one refeed day per week if you're experiencing any hormonal red flags. Listen to your body and adjust based on how you feel. I also want to quickly address two specific situations. For women, your body may be more sensitive to energy deficits than men. If you notice changes in your menstrual cycle, that's a signal that your fasting is too aggressive for your current situation. Many women do better with shorter fasting windows, around 12 to 14 hours, especially during certain phases of their cycle. For people working night shifts, your goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. Try to eat within the same window each day, even if that window is at unusual hours. Consistency of timing matters more than hitting some ideal eating schedule that doesn't fit your life. Focus on reducing overall stress and getting the best sleep you can, given your situation. Now, a common question I get is, how do you know if your cortisol is actually elevated? There are 3 levels of monitoring you can do. Level 1 is simple self-tracking that anyone can do. Keep a journal for 1 to 2 weeks. Note how long you sleep, whether you wake up during the night, what time you naturally wake up, whether your hands and feet are cold, whether you're craving salt, and how your energy is throughout the day. After a week or two, patterns will emerge. Level 2 involves wearable devices if you have them. A fitness tracker or smartwatch can show you useful data. Watch your resting heart rate. If it's suddenly elevated compared to your baseline, that's a sign of stress. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is another useful metric. Lower HRV generally indicates poorer recovery and higher stress. Sleep tracking can show if your deep sleep is decreasing. These aren't medical diagnostics, but they're useful data points. Level 3 is knowing when to see a doctor. If your red flags persist for more than 2 to 3 weeks despite making adjustments, it's time to get professional help. Other signs that warrant medical attention include loss of menstrual period for women, unexplained rapid heartbeat or palpitations, extreme fatigue that doesn't improve with rest, or any symptoms that concern you. A doctor can order cortisol testing through saliva or blood samples to get objective data. Before you go, here's your action checklist. 5 things you can start doing today. 1. Look at your baseline. If you're fasting 16 plus hours every single day, consider dropping to 12. 2. Move your calories earlier. Eat your biggest meal earlier in your eating window rather than saving everything for dinner. 3. Check your exercise timing. If you're doing high-intensity training more than 14 hours into a fast, either add carbohydrates afterward or train earlier in your fasting window. 4. Track for 1 week. Just notice your sleep quality, energy levels, and any red flags. Awareness is the first step. 5. Match your fasting to your stress. High stress week means shorter fasts. Low stress week means you can push a bit more. And if you've ever been confused because you heard 2 experts say completely opposite things about fasting, here's the explanation. They're usually both right, but they're talking about different situations, different goals, different stress levels, different health histories, different metabolic states. No one is lying to you. You just need to find the approach that fits your specific situation. So here's the truth. Fasting isn't broken. Your hormones aren't broken. You just need to understand the conversation your body is trying to have with you. Every time cortisol rises during a fast, your body is saying, I'm protecting your brain. Every time your thyroid slows down, it's saying, I'm conserving energy for you. Every time growth hormone surges, it's saying, I'm protecting your muscles. These aren't malfunctions, they're features. The question isn't whether to fast, it's how to fast in a way that works with these intelligent systems rather than against them. What about you? What's your current fasting pattern? Have you noticed any of these warning signs? I'd love to hear your experience in the comments below. And if you know someone who's been struggling with their fasting results, feeling stuck, or experiencing weird symptoms they can't explain, share this video with them. Sometimes understanding the why behind what's happening is all it takes to fix the how. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.